Hello, I'm Gloria Makarenko. Well, there are so many interesting stories in our cities, so let's explore them together. This is Our Vancouver. Coming up, uncovering the hidden history of the South Asian community's early roots in Kitsilano. And learn how a non-binary drag group is finding new ways to perform in the documentary The Darlings, live from quarantine. But first, a fresh perspective on the ups and downs of mountain biking.
If you look at a video after, you won't see anything on the video. It'll be like you're up on your bike and then you're down. But it feels like things are happening in slow motion.
Well, it's no secret. Some of the world's best mountain bikers ride on BC trails, and they include an Olympic medalist and a world champion. But pushing yourself to the limit means that sometimes you fall. And that is the subject of a new documentary that premiered this year at Tribeca. It's now online on the New Yorker's YouTube channel. Josephine Anderson is the filmmaker of On Falling. Josephine, hello there.
Hi, Gloria.
Now, people might presume that you are an avid mountain biker, but you're not. So what attracted you to this subject?
Yeah, I'm not an avid mountain biker. In fact, I'm in awe of anyone who has the courage to hit the trails. It's an intense sport. And I guess part of what drew me to it is that, living here in the Lower Mainland, we're in one of the, most beautiful mountain bike destinations in the world. North Vancouver, Squamish, Whistler, have super thriving mountain bike communities. A lot of my friends mountain bike, but I've always been a little bit too wimpy to do it myself. So I guess I wanted to look into it from that outsider's perspective.
The safety of behind the camera lens. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
It's interesting that you feature 3 of the world's best riders, and they're all women. Now, I'm just curious, why did you ask them about their relationship to falling, rather than, competition or winning or that type of thing?
To be honest, I think it's because falling was the thing about mountain biking that most drew me in. I think it's incredible how frequently mountain bikers fall. I mean, it depends on your style of riding, of course, but it's pretty common. And for these riders who are professional mountain bikers, they fall all the time, and they just have learned how to come back from that and how to develop like an internal process where they can somehow still have that really, really strong desire to keep going and face their fears. So yeah, I think that's why I wanted to focus on falling specifically. Well,
As a viewer, I mean, there are some really, cringeworthy moments there. And then you look at the, just the battering that their bodies take as well. I mean, what did you learn about why they were all, willing to risk? I mean, not only risk, but even enjoy risking, serious, painful injuries?
Honestly, I think that there's something that they can't find anywhere else that comes from riding for these particular people. It's like the adrenaline, the speed, and I think maybe internally the process of continually facing your own demons is something that I think once you learn how to overcome that and continue to show up again and again and again despite the difficulties, I think that can be really addictive.
Well, it was kind of fun seeing Miranda laugh when she was talking about breaking both of her arms. I mean, do they even think about the possibility of injuries that could actually end their careers?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's no secret that lots of really high caliber mountain bikers have had career ending falls and some even fatal. So it's not a joke by any means, but I think it's the natural sort of coping mechanism. When you look back at something in the past, you can laugh at it a little bit more easily than maybe you might in the moment. I think as well, there's a sort of, I don't know, I guess a little bit of a healthy relationship with what's happened in the past where you don't dwell on it too much and you're able to, I guess keep a level head where you're trying not to think too much about your fear and try to put your fear in a place that's manageable.
Well, I was feeling the fear, though. I mean, I was thinking about the scene where Miranda says that she thought that her GoPro broke because the camera isn't moving. And so you're just hearing this constant sound of her, obviously in pain. I mean, what was it like for you to watch footage like that?
Super intense. I think for a lot of viewers who have seen On Falling, like that scene in particular can be really difficult to watch. And actually, when we were editing the footage, it was a difficult decision to decide whether to include it and how much to include. And in the end, that particular clip, that's like a GoPro clip that Miranda shared with us from a fall that she had just previous to us filming, like a few months back. We cut it down quite a bit because the full clip was actually just a little bit too gruesome to bear, I think. So I tried to find that sweet balance where we were doing justice to the reality of how intense a fall can be, but also not glorifying it or making it too much of a voyeuristic thing, trying to find that sweet balance in the middle.
Wow, it got worse. Yeah. It got worse. I'm trying to imagine. Thank you for taking that into consideration, for sure. I'm just, as a non-biker, how could you take what the bikers were saying and, kind of relate it to your own life or to the lives of others?
Yeah, like I said, I'm not a mountain biker at all. I don't know, one day maybe, but it's hard to imagine because I do feel like it's such a courage, like it requires such a courage. But for me, as someone who's more of a book nerd, I make films, I hang out behind a camera. For me, it's all about, fear versus joy. I think all of us are facing decisions constantly in our lives about how we want to operate and how much we want to be, make our decisions according to, the things that could go wrong versus the things that make us joyful. And I think that's what it's all about for me. It's a film that maybe uses mountain biking as a gateway into some of those internal experiences that we all have.
Josephine, you did a beautiful job with this. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Gloria.
Hi, this is Mandy. This is Our Vancouver.
All right, it's time for one of our favorite features of the program. This is when we get to showcase some of the photographs that you have sent in for us. Renee Warren sent us this photograph of a robin with its beak full of berries. She took it at the southern tip of Elaine Lake in the provincial park. Thank you so much, Renee. Maureen Riley sent us this shot of a lovely sunset at Salt Spring Island. Just look at the silhouettes of those trees. Beautiful. And finally, Ari Nyman found this little waterfall during an evening walk along Perimeter Trail on Mount Seymour. That is just so calming and beautiful. And do send us more. It's easy. You just email your photographs to us, bcphotos@cbc.ca. That's bcphotos@cbc.ca. Coming up, Johanna Wagstaff is going to explain how lockdowns due to COVID-19 have led to dramatic reductions in high-frequency noise around the world.
Every day, seismometers all over the world are tracking the earthquakes, big and small, that rumble under our feet. But that's not all they pick up. They're vibrating constantly with the noise of crashing waves, strong winds from a storm, and the daily buzz of human activity. So when countries responding to the pandemic went into lockdown, a geophysicist from Belgium saw those sharp waves drop off in his data. He ended up collaborating with 76 co-authors from institutions all over the world, using roughly 600 seismic stations. A massive collaboration that has led to some surprising results. Mika McKinnon was one of the geophysicists part of that paper.
We've got a seismometer at Canada Place in Vancouver that was one of the stations we used during this. But we also looked at places like in the middle of the Sahara Desert, and we looked at a mine shaft in Germany that is the absolute quietest place on the entire planet for seismicity, like dropped down in the mine shaft, and we still saw a change in the amount of buzzing every day as the pandemic lockdown started. We can actually interpret that this quietness is because more people are staying home, that fewer people are commuting to work each day, fewer people are traveling between different locations. So we're literally seeing the public health policy of lockdowns to prevent pandemic spread. I can see people following the rules.
The quieting is unprecedented, at least as far as we can go back in time with continuous seismic data, so at least until the 1970s. And that's not all. We can use this unique window to find signals from natural sources that might have been previously concealed.
In Vancouver, one of the things we're concerned about is we're on an active seismic zone. We really want to understand it well and where exactly our fault lines are and what's moving and going on with them. And it can be kind of hard to see past all of this noise all of the time. Well, right now, with all the humans being quieter, we can see very faint earthquakes that normally just get lost and we can't tell they're there.
Now that we know what the fingerprint of human noise looks like, who knows what we'll discover? All of this data is publicly available. So if there are any geophysicists out there, the invitation to discover is yours. And now, you're Science Smart. If you have a science question on your mind, send me a tweet and I'll try to get it answered.
Thank you so much, Johanna. Well, welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, when you walk through many neighborhoods in Metro Vancouver, some histories are less obvious than others. Despite more than 100 years here, South Asians have few streets or statues honoring their contributions. Well, 3 historians are highlighting those rarely shared stories as part of the Monsoon Festival of the Performing Arts. Paneet Singh is one of the historians, and he co-hosts the Nameless Collective podcast. Paneet is also a playwright and a filmmaker. He's a pretty busy guy. Paneet, hello there.
Hi, Gloria. Thanks for having me.
So you're going to do 2 live virtual walking tours. How is that going to work?
So it's going to be really interesting. One of them is going to be in Kitsilano. The other one's going to be in South Vancouver's Punjabi Market. And myself and one of my colleagues from the Nameless Collective will be taking you with a cell phone to these 2 South Asian neighborhoods, or Kitsilano used to be South Asian neighborhoods. And it'll be really interesting because usually on a walking tour with a group of 20, 30 people, you can't quite get into the shops and the businesses. But when it's just one person and a cell phone, I think you're going to get a really intimate glimpse of those areas.
Wait, you just sort of threw that out there. Kitsilano used to be a South Asian neighborhood. In what way? Tell us more about that history.
Well, I mean, for 60 years, from about 1906 to about 1969, that Kitsilano was the first South Asian hub in Vancouver. And that was by virtue of the fact that the first Gurdwara, which is a Sikh place of worship, was built in Kitsilano. So that was the spiritual, social, political, commercial hub of the community. So even though we don't see a lot of that history around today, we're going to be walking through those streets and kind of pointing out to where these buildings used to be, where people used to live, and where a lot of the politics and events like the Kamagata Maru, where a lot of that happened in the streets of Kitsilano.
Well, Vancouver now has street signs marking the location of your second walking tour, the Punjabi Market on Main Street. So that's from 48th to 51st Street. So what have you been able to, uncover about its history that people may not know about?
Well, it's really fascinating because we look towards places like Surrey, and there's a lot of business plazas that we see with South Asian businesses that are booming, and they do so much. They do so much business on a day-to-day basis, and probably outsell what the Punjabi market used. But the things that we often don't consider is that the Punjabi market wasn't just a commercial space. It was a place for political activism, for social gathering. And even year after year, we see now the Vancouver Vaisakhi Nagar Kirtan, the parade that happens every April. The epicenter of that parade happens through the Punjabi market. So I think we're going to go a lot into not just the businesses, but a lot of the social and political life of the market, which is usually something we don't get to talk about a lot.
Okay, and that's all going to happen Tuesday, August 11th, right?
So Tuesday, August 11th, we'll be doing Kitsilano. That'll be the first one. The second one will be August 18th, the following Tuesday, and then we'll go through the Punjabi market. And then it all wraps up on the 25th, where we do a panel with myself and my colleagues, Naveen Gurn, Milan Singh, which is moderated by Manjot Bains, the producer of the Nameless Collective podcast, where we talk about kind of the challenges of our journeys with uncovering these histories, and also a little bit about the process of making our podcast as well.
Well, I'd like to hear more about your podcast, The Nameless Collective. I know it's been described as, engaging and accessible. It's pretty fun as well. So how would you describe your approach to those who haven't heard it yet?
I mean, our approach is basically not to make it a history lecture. Myself, Milind Singh, Naveen Gurn, we're really good friends, and we are all just geeking out about local South Asian history constantly. And Manjot Bains, who's Naveen Gurn's partner, she happened to say that I'm not as interested in this as you guys are, but sitting here and listening to you guys talk about it with each other is actually really interesting because we get to talk about stuff that's not really conventional sometimes. Jokes, rumors, things like that, where it's like usually those things don't make it into a lecture or into a textbook. And so that's kind of our approach is taking those like little nuances and details, but also kind of challenging kind of like dominant narratives and like just kind of like main big stories and looking into the humble, the everyday, the intimate, and the quirky. And that's the kind of approach that we take.
Oh, I like that idea. So, I mean, when you look at sort of the impact of conversations like this, your podcast, these tours, just talking about South Asian history in this way, how can it inform the future, would you say?
I think it's incredibly important. I think our history as we study it today, the textbooks as we read them today, are based on a colonial white male narrative, and that needs to be disrupted. And the fact that we're having these conversations, that we're presenting these histories and often marginalized stories, not just South Asian stories and not just other racialized communities, but all marginalized stories, when we start to center them, we really start to disrupt this kind of understanding of history as the nation state, or like these big concepts that we're kind of fed to understand since we're really young. So I think it's really important because us and whoever else does this work and delves into this history is really just saying that every single human being, that you matter, your existence matters, where you came from matters, and it matters as much as anything you might have learned about in a textbook when you were growing up.
Paneet, so nice to talk to you. I hope the tours go really well later this month. You take care, okay?
Thank you so much, Gloria.
Hey, this is Kids Beach and this is Our Vancouver!
Searching like a stray dog, soaking wet under the rainfall for the sweet smell of home. Wandering for days now, still longing for a rainbow.
A lot of big events have been canceled or gone online since the pandemic hit. Vancouver's Carnaval del Sol is the biggest Latin festival in the Pacific Northwest, and it's going mostly online this year, right through until August 9th. Every week, sometimes twice a week, Pablo Zacarias and Daniela Carmona co-host Across the Americas. It's an online fiesta featuring music and food, art, and much more from Canada, Mexico, and South America. So for more information, go to carnavaldelsol.ca. Vancouver Biennale is mixing the outdoors with the online with its Bikenale, Walkenale. For a $5 donation, you get 12 app-guided tours that highlight public art, architecture, and points of cultural and historical interest. For more information, just go to vbbike.ca, vbbike.ca.
Hey, I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music here to introduce you to an amazing new artist from Winnipeg named Boniface. Now, if you know the Manitoba capital, you may be aware that St. Boniface is a well-known Winnipeg neighborhood and the one that this artist grew up in.
And lately I've been feeling so restless. I drove to a small town last weekend just to see where my head is.
Coming off as a kind of stream of consciousness cross between the Postal Service, Joe Jackson, and an electro version of the Weakerthans, that is the best new artist I've heard this year, called Boniface from Winnipeg, with the song I Will Not Return as a Tourist. Boniface is the musical project of Micah Visser, who wrote the intimate songs for the album throughout the artist's late teens and early 20s, getting the ideas for the tunes while wandering around the city after shifts working at a Winnipeg coffee shop. The songs were largely recorded in the room they were written in, created in a space of confidence, juxtaposing the intimate lyrics with the catchy hooks, like in this great song called Ghosts.
I think you kissed me then, took both my shaking hands, said if it kills us we'll go. down. The sweetest ghost in this whole town.
From one of the best albums released so far this year, that is Boniface from Winnipeg with the song Ghosts from the self-titled debut album, which was released on Valentine's Day. Every song on this record feels like a diary entry, backed by big beats that could get a club of 2,000 people hopping. And speaking of moves, Boniface boasts those too. Check out this video for Keeping Up.
And I tell you I'm slow. I say I need a friend, but it's miserable to play pity like that. I just need you to calm me down like late night CBC radio. I'm a mess tonight.
There you go. That song might contain the lyric of the year as well. I just need you to calm me down like late night CBC radio. Nice. That is Boniface with the song Keeping Up, and that is the tune that you need to add to your playlist this week. Heck, you need to add the entire Boniface album to your playlist. I'm Grant Lawrence from CBC Music. Check in with you again next week.
Coming up, why so many Indigenous people from across Canada are attracted to Vancouver's Grandview Woodland neighborhood. Hi, welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Did you know today 1 in 10 residents of the Grandview Woodland neighborhood identify as Indigenous? So with almost 2,300 First Nations, Inuit, and Métis residents in East Vancouver, you don't have to go far to see or experience their influence in the community. Wamish Hamilton from our Urban Nations unit takes us there.
You know, everything Indigenous happened there. It was one of the only places we could go to see our people. So that was a big part of the reason why we moved down here.
It's a neighborhood that first began as timber mills in the early days of Vancouver. Now it's home to over 60,000 people from a diverse range of ethnic backgrounds. And it's most often here that Indigenous peoples moving from across the country choose to live.
We have a large body of nonprofit Aboriginal housing in this neighborhood.
There are 11 apartment buildings in the Grandview Woodlands area that are owned and operated by the Vancouver Native Housing Society. Affordable housing in an expensive city may be one reason why this neighborhood has attracted a large number of Indigenous people from across the country.
We want to be here because our families are here, our friends are here, the Friendship Center is here. There's a lot of Indigenous arts and crafts and stuff that take place in this, so it's a very welcoming place for our folks.
Because you see yourself, you see our color, you see our people. If you move into Richmond or any of the outlying areas, you don't see yourself.
The East Van neighborhood is also home to 8 parks, Trout Lake being the biggest. The amount of green space in this area replaces the sense of being on the land many Indigenous people felt on their home reserves. And easy acceptance from a multicultural community also helps to transition to city living.
The people in the neighborhood are quite educated to our issues, and they're very supportive. And so I feel very, safe in my own neighborhood.
Grandview Woodlands, or East Van as it's commonly known, is a melting pot of all of Canada's Indigenous peoples. Their presence here enhances the multicultural character of the neighborhood. Wamish Hamilton, CBC News, East Van.
Now, this summer, a lot of us seem to have a lot more time on our hands than usual, and that includes the kids. So thanks to COVID-19, everything from summer camps to family vacations have been canceled. But 4 girls in Surrey are making this one of the best summers ever by starting their own charity. Deborah Goebel tells us more.
But we have a lot so far, and there's more coming.
Starting a charity isn't that unheard of, but starting one when you're 10 years old, that is a little unusual.
It doesn't matter how old you are, you could do anything you want, anything that's possible to you.
That's why these 4 friends created Kids for Kindness.
We thought that, yeah, this would be good to do. Nice to help other kids, and like as we're kids, and like not being on video games, playing, like doing all that stuff that normally kids would do.
And I was like all pumped and ready. I was like, yes, let's do this.
This is their virtual toy drive.
On the card, go sign your name.
For their first project, they wanted to do something for BC Children's Hospital, so they're collecting new toys. They'll even get you a tax receipt.
You can buy the toys, and we can come to your door and pick up the toys or other items safely.
They are getting a little help from their moms, a big sister, and her friend. After all, someone has to do the driving, but Kids for Kindness is all their idea.
They volunteer before in smaller capacities, and so they decided that perhaps, since we're getting older, that we should perhaps do something to give back.
It was super exciting. It was when they found out that doing this, they came to his mommy, we're doing this. I was like, wow, I'm so proud of them.
Sometimes you meet someone and you just click. Then you find out you all have a lot in common.
And we would eat together at lunch, and we would talk together at lunch. It's just...
And we would also beg our teacher to put us together in groups if we're like separated. We would beg her.
That's what happened to these four.
When they became friends, I asked them, can I be friends with you guys too? And then we all became friends.
Starting a charity was just what they came up with to do together this summer.
And while kids, we're like free all the time, so we are better at doing charities sometimes.
We are overwhelmed with the support that they've gotten from the community and the encouragement they're getting from the community. I think this is just the start for them.
Because even though they're not even 12 years old yet, they've already figured out something very important.
When you're nice to someone, then you feel good about yourself.
Deborah Goebel, CBC News, Surrey.
Coming up, see how a local non-binary drag troupe prepared to take their show online. Hi, welcome back to Our Vancouver. I'm Gloria Makarenko. Now, drag shows typically thrive off live audiences, but with public performances practically off the table, artists have had to adapt or shelve their shows entirely. The Darlings is a group that did the former, as you're going to see in this documentary from the CBC Creator Network. It's called Live from Quarantine.
I'm a drag artist, a non-binary Indigenous queer drag artist who works on Coast Salish territory. And I'm a member of the Darlings, which is a four-person non-binary drag troupe. Through design, photography, video, and performance art, and poetry, every art form I love is just wrapped into one perfectly wrapped gift called the Darlings.
People are watching, they're waiting for you, hoping to see the new hero. It's making you nervous, but what can you do? Isn't it worth everything you've been through? You're a winner, so winner, take all.
The reason I started doing drag was a response to ballet. I was a ballet dancer for most of my life. They would stand us in a line and choose their dancers and choose the partnerships and make you be a man or a woman. And I found myself always wanting to do more of the woman roles, but I wasn't allowed to because of what I was assigned at birth. Then my friend just put me in drag and sent me out on stage one night, and ever since I felt like it's really just impacted the way I move through the world. And I ended up leaving dance to pursue drag more full time. This is the one. Has a tasteful neckline. Chris will be so disappointed that I'm getting another black dress today. It even moves nice. I like the windows.
They're cute,
You should
right?
keep them up forever.
I know.
That's CERB money going to good use.
When the pandemic started, first thing everyone does is they turn to art. The effects of being a queer person in isolation is you go and you turn on your TV and it's all cisgendered straight people. And it's really, really boring and sad to not see yourself in anything you watch. And that's why people go to drag shows, because they see people like themselves and they see this vibrancy that they don't see anywhere else. When we started the Darlings, it was partially in response to the representation that was happening in the drag scene already. All 4 of us are non-binary, and that's part of the reason why we came together initially, because we knew there were people like us that weren't seeing themselves represented in drag yet.
This year's Queer Arts Festival's theme is around wickedness, and we're just really ripping apart the ideas of what it is to be a non-binary person and really force-feeding it to our audience and making them understand what it is to be a non-binary body. Hi. It's been about 2.5 to 3 months since we've sat in a circle together. Physically, it's been too long. 3 of us within the Darlings are a joined bubble, so we're allowed to touch and play with touch. To put your hand on somebody just means so much. And Rose, unfortunately, isn't within our bubble, so a lot of our show is built around the inability for Rose to join in, and that they have to stay at a 6-foot distance.
I miss like being close to everybody, because that's a big part of like, I feel like what we do is showing like affection through touch on stage. We just kind of get into like a dance of like moving around each other. Honestly, when they like have snacks and I can't have any, that's the worst part.
No answer. Oh, they're calling me. The joys of this.
This one will be shot like a film, but set in a theater, because we have this really interesting experience of being able to use an empty theater and edit it together into a live steaming theater show. And I just think it's the best thing we've done.
A lot of the festival is like, I guess like the theme too with like wickedness and homonormativity is like, it's just however many years ago people were calling to like remove drag queens and like kinksters from the pride parades because they were like not palatable. And now that those things are becoming more mainstream, people are okay with it. Also, we're filming like next weekend.
I know. I realized. I thought it was next Tuesday, but it is next Thursday. Which is still really soon.
And then we go bam, and then walk out of it this way into something.
Sure.
Yeah. And then
it's one, stay on that side.
Okay. Yeah, and then these hands gotta be gifty, like.
Okay, hand. We've done really chaotically fun numbers that are just for our pleasure. And then we've done numbers that we really want the audience to walk away and be like, what did we just witness? And continue talking about it.
We're dressing as pigs dressed as cops.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're gonna soil ourselves.
We're gonna shit ourselves.
Shit.
We're breaking the rules by having them, but that's what visual artists do.
But these are RCMP bands. And they were given to us by an artist and activist and friend of ours. They were taken from a police officer.
Yeah,
a homophobic, transphobic police officer. So they gave them to us to queer up, and now we shake our queer little asses in them all over the country.
With a nice blouse on. Like a milky guy. Drag is political in itself, just getting out there and presenting as what you want the world to see is political. Breath down. Da, 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 da. Danger.
Before the pandemic, we were doing drag full time. And to be honest, I'd kind of just jumped off into committing to that. And we all quit our jobs, and PM quit their job too, and then this happened 3 months later. I cried, and then I called PM. I was just like, Desi, we have to do something, like we can't just freak out, like literally everything's canceled, we have to do something, we have to do a show. And they were like, oh, Jesus. And called Made in China and Rose. I was like, listen, I really think we should do this show in 2 weeks, and I think we should use our webcams. And that was like my first mistake with those shows.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. I can hear you, but I can't hear my music.
Luckily, it worked out really well. The support was huge from our first broadcast, but unfortunately, it got censored. And somebody reported it on Facebook, and it got taken down immediately. They deemed it as inappropriate or explicit content. That was what the descriptor was. And then so we disputed it. Facebook put the video back up, but by that time, we had lost a huge chunk of our audience. Trying to figure out how to get it onto Vimeo right after, and then how to redirect all of our audience. So it kind of became this whole experience that ended up being kind of memorable and exciting and very specific to what we were going through. We got our second show ready, we did like a whole new media platform, we did a press release, and then that show got taken down too. And that was like a really good glimpse into the reality of what it's like to navigate the internet as a queer person. Oh, there it is. So this is a video that the CBC posted of myself from last Pride, and I'm going to read through some of the comments on it because while I don't think there's any value in what they're saying, I do think it's important for people to see that this is still very much a real thing. Why does this fucking freak think it's okay to be on television? There's some cute ones in here from my friends too, but surprised this person hasn't killed themselves yet. Ever thought about killing yourself? Here's a solution, you could just die. Yeah, just thought of that. Fuck. It's unfortunate, but the only spaces that provide us that safeness is queer spaces, but that doesn't really happen anywhere else. So that's been the hardest part about losing these spaces, is because it's all we had. There was people that were literally queer and alone for 3 months. And we need this. We need these spaces. We need parties. We need to dance together. Because it's still an act of rebellion, even though it shouldn't be. Same with drag. The overarching message is that we are bringing our bodies to this show. This is about our skin, this is about us touching each other, this is about love between each other, this is about sex, it's about, you know, pain, it's about love, it's about the physical makeup of our bodies. People think it's like brave and an act of rebellion, you know, but it's who we are. Bam. Done.
All right, time now to rewind the clock with the help of our CBC archives. Bike theft has been a big problem in Vancouver for many years. And while a lot of people will share tips on how to discourage it, it's rare to hear from someone actually caught in the act. And that's what Duncan McHugh did 12 years ago on this story.
To find out how easily bikes are stolen, I rode a bike worth $500 to the public library and locked it with a $20 cable lock. The rack is tucked behind the stairs in a location close to the downtown east side.
Okay, so it's locked to the front tire now.
Then we waited. As this popular YouTube video shows, bike theft isn't rocket science. The New York City filmmaker repeatedly steals his own bike, and he's ignored. Bike shop owner Simon Coots says some locks are better than others.
Cable locks are very easy to penetrate. They cut like within seconds.
They just cut through the cable.
Yeah. It's more just a deterrent than a prevention, right? If you really want to stop someone from stealing your bike, you get, one of the big, strong U-locks.
Meanwhile, at our bike rack, 60 minutes has passed. Our bike is still there. Other cyclists pull up and only lock their frames. That's a no-no.
What's wrong with just using the kryptonite the way you've got it right now, around the frame and around the...
Because the bike's totally secure, but you take your seat with you, because I can take the seat.
Then Simon makes quick work of the tires.
If you take the front wheel, you're out another $200. Take the seat and seat post, you're out another $100. So yeah.
And in a matter of seconds.
Exactly, done.
Back at the library, after less than 2 hours, this happens.
Bingo, there he is.
And we do what police advise against: confront the thief.
I was trying, yes.
Oh, why'd you take my bike?
Because
it's not your property,
you're right. That's not my. You're right.
Okay, we caught you in the theft right
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
Why were you stealing?
Why were you taking the bike?
Boils right down to it, drugs.
He tells us his name is Kevin, and he sells the bikes on the street to anybody for as little as $20 each.
No, like I said, I just started. This is like my 3rd or 4th bike this week, and this is it. This is all.
Yeah. You did that pretty fast for doing it for the 3rd or 4th time.
Well, again, it picks up on things quick, right?
Yeah. It's not that hard then.
No, no, it's not that hard. With a pair of pliers, boom, it's not that hard at all.
You need about $150 a day for the heroin, right? And you get about $30 for the bike?
Something like that.
Okay. So how many bikes do you steal in a day?
Well, I just went and tried to get on the flipping detox list. I sat there for 2 hours and no help at all.
Yeah.
Help at all. The contact center. I don't want to do this anymore. I've been the victim of theft as well. It hurts. And it's violation. It hurts. It sucks. And that's why I'm, getting caught like this. I don't even know what to say. I don't know what to say. Except I'm truly sorry. This is another eye-opener right here.
From Kevin, the chain of stolen bicycles can lead anywhere to a private sale, a pawn shop, or a used bike store.
I don't want this life anymore.
Can you give me a suggestion? What would you say to people who are watching who would be worried about their bikes getting stolen? What would you say to them that they should do?
I don't know. If somebody wants something bad enough, they're gonna get it. That's the bottom line, right?
It's a pretty bleak assessment of cycling life in a city, with all those Kevins desperate for a fix, and all those bikes so easily stolen. Duncan McHugh, CBC News, Vancouver.
CBC Vancouver is so lucky to have an award-winning photographer on staff. Ben Nelms captures all sorts of images of life in our city. Here are some of his best of the week. And that's all for Our Vancouver for this week. I hope you'll be able to join me weekday afternoons on CBC Radio 1 for On the Coast. Goodbye for now.